The whole town's batting about Cincinnati. What a team, what a team, what a team. Each man and lady from 1 to 80, how they scream, how they scream, how they scream.
Hello, Reds fans, and welcome to another edition of We Love Our Team. Along with my partner, Randy Freaking, we're proud to welcome George Vincent. George is the former managing partner of the Dinsmore Law Firm, headquartered here in Cincinnati. George is also a corporate attorney, and his diligent and thoughtful approach to solving clients' needs has led to what clients often refer to as a special relationship, lasting decades and founded on trust, success, results, and reliability. George is also part of the Reds ownership group through Queen City Diamond LLC. So, George, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for being here. It's an honor to be with two of the more eminent attorneys in all of Cincinnati.
Yeah, watch out for our studio audience, George. Now, we need to let our listeners know that unlike many of our guests, you are not a lifelong Reds fan. Is that correct?
That's correct. But first, let me say thank you for letting me be on the podcast. I'm with two of Cincinnati's greatest lawyers, the preeminent First Amendment attorney, Jack, and probably the greatest employment attorney on the employee side, Randy Freaking. So this is a real honor to be associated with both of you. So thanks for having me.
Hey, George, thanks a lot. Who was your favorite, your first favorite team, George?
That'd be the Detroit Tigers. I grew up outside of Detroit. Tigers nut. My grandfather took me to my first Tigers game, opening day 1962. If you recall, the Tigers had finished second to the Yankees in 61. Norm Cash at 361. He and Al Kaline were phenomenal. Dewey had Rocky Colavito in the outfield as well. So that was my first experience at Tiger Stadium. I fell in love with the Tigers from that point on. I was a baseball card collector, all kinds of Tigers memorabilia. I could spend a whole podcast talking about the Tigers, but I won't.
We had Rocky Colavito. That's a second reference to Rocky Colavito in our podcast this season. We had Sherrod Brown on several weeks ago.
He's great, isn't he?
Guardians fan / Indians fan, and there is the curse of Rocky Colavito in Cleveland.
Harvey Keene trading steak for hamburger. That's a great quote. Harvey Keene for Rocky Colavito.
That's right. Who was the guy? Who did the Tigers give up?
Harvey Keene.
Oh, Harvey Keene. That's right. Yeah.
He was a pretty good hitter.
Good hitter. Later became the manager of the Brewers.
Milwaukee Brewers lost a leg too. Yeah.
Harvey's Wallbangers. One of my favorite team nicknames of all time. I just I loved it. I was 10 years old in 1968. And the World Series that year was really the first one I remember. Tigers came back from down 3-1, won 4-3. Great series on the field. But, there was an interesting situation with national anthem that year. I was wondering if you remember that. You could tell our younger listeners a little bit about that.
Sure. So I went to game 3 of that World Series. I sat 2 rows on the top and the upper deck. It was a Saturday game. Earl Wilson against Nelson Briles. Tigers lost. I still have the ticket stub. The top 10 highlights of your childhood. That's in my top 10. So the controversy you referred to, Jack, Ernie Harwell was a longtime announcer on the radio for the Tigers. Ernie was a songwriter, had several songs published, written, and he was given the opportunity by Jim Campbell, the general manager of the Tigers, to pick who was going to sing the national anthem. Marvin Gaye was the second person who did it. In Game 5, I believe, he picked Jose Feliciano, the blind singer who had done a cover version of Light My Fire that was very popular the preceding year, 1967, 68. So Jose Feliciano came out and gave a very moving, thoughtful rendition that went on for a while. He gave it his personal imprimatur. A very controversial front page news across the country. National anthem slandered. Some people loved it. Ernie Harwell defended Jose Feliciano until the day Ernie died. That really kind of thrust Jose Feliciano into the spotlight beyond the remake of Light My Fire. I remember watching him sing the national anthem. It didn't bother me, but I was 11. I'm much older than you are, Jack. So, but that was a big deal. And as you mentioned, Tigers came back to win that series. They were down 3-1. That was the year of the pitcher. Bob Gibson was 22-9 for the Cardinals, 1.12 ERA. Danny McClain won 31 games for the Tigers, the last 31 game winner, and I'm going to guess maybe the last 31 game winner ever. Dizzy Dean was in town when he won the 30th game. They pulled him for a pinch hitter in the game he won his 30th. And the Tigers, as they did many, many times in 68, came back to win that game for him. There's this iconic picture on the cover of Sports Illustrated, I believe, of Denny running out of dugout. Al Kaline is trying to hug him as he runs out to celebrate with the rest of his teammates. So the first game is McLean against Gibson. It's the talk of the country. This is the last World Series. There were no playoffs. It was just the two best teams, the way it used to be, the way it always should be. McLean against Gibson. Gibson strikes out 17 guys. Norm Cash, last guy to strike out. Gibson said he couldn't hit him with no matter what he had, what kind of bat he was going to hit him. Denny took that rather hard. He'd had pitched 330 innings, I believe, and he was getting a cortisone shot after every start. So game 2, Mickey Loach hits the only home run of his career in that game, and Loach wins. Earl Wilson loses to Nelson Briles. Game 3. Game 4, it's Denny against Gibson again. We get crushed. I'm on 10-1, 15, 100-1. It was over before the second inning was over. Game 5, Mickey Loach comes back, wins again. Game 6, they bring Denny back on short rest. He wins 10-1. Now it's game 7, just like it was in 67. But that was Longberg against Gibson. Gibson wins. Everybody knows. Now it's Gibson against Mickey Loach, kind of unheralded left-hander, kind of a weird motion. On 2 days rest, we freaking win. That town goes crazy. I got goosebumps just talking about it. It was one of the singular moments of my childhood. The Tigers to win that World Series. We just had the significant race riots in Detroit in 1967, and this time the city came together. It's been a little bit overblown that they saved Detroit, but it was a seminal moment in Detroit history. So I gave you a long answer to a short question, but that was one of the great, great moments of my life.
Oh, like I say, it was really the first time I vaguely remember '67 and the Red Sox and the Cardinals, but I just got so caught up in the '68 series. I remember, this is a podcast about the Reds, not the Tigers, so we'll move on in a minute here. But I remember the other kind of cool thing was Mickey Stanley, the center fielder, moving in to play shortstop, so they could get Al Kaline in the lineup, right?
And so Ray Oyler was the starting shortstop. Was terrible. Like he hit 120 when he was horrible. Nice fielder. So with 5 games to go in the regular season, we'd already clinched. Mayo Smith, who was a mediocre manager, announces, "I'm going to take Mickey Stanley out of center field. He was a great athlete, Gold Glover. Put him at shortstop, so Kaline can play right field. He'd been hurt most of the season, and Jim Northrup had done a great job. He had 3 grand slams. He also had a grand slam in Game 6. So Kaline had a phenomenal series. He got to get the ring. I've met Al Kaline several times, and he, to the end of his days, he was appreciative of Mayo Smith giving him a chance to play.
Yeah, that was an awesome story. So
was Al Kaline?
I could spend the next 2 hours. Don't let me do it.
Was Al Kaline your favorite player?
Yeah, he was. And so I was a member of the Green Diamond. Yeah, I'm sure you guys visited there. They invited Al over and over again. He wouldn't do it. But they had the Character and Courage Awards, and they invited him to come do that, and he did it. So I went with my wife. There was a little small gathering beforehand. And it was like, he had 10 Hall of Fame guys. Bob brought these great guys in. And no one's talking to Al Kaline. I walked to Al Kaline. My wife and I spent 2 hours with him talking nonstop. And you have your heroes, and you expect him to be this. He was that. He was unbelievable. Kind, thoughtful, forthcoming about any questions we had. So that's the first thing. The second, it's a big crowd of people. There's probably 300 people. I walk in. Al Kaline goes, George. Al Kaline's with me. I got goosebumps telling that story. Al Kaline calling me out. I said, hey, Al, enough. No, I got other people to talk to. He's an unbelievable guy.
That's great. We went, my sons, who they both worked for George
Right.
At one point.
Good lawyers, nice guys.
Well, they are good guys. But
Great guys.
we went last year to a game in Detroit, at Comerica Park. It's now, gosh, it's going on 20 years old now, isn't it?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. But a beautiful park. But tell me about the old Tiger Stadium. Like, did you? It's like you went to a fair number of games there, Temple.
Yeah, I probably several hundred. When I was in college, one of my really good friends from high school's best friend's mother worked for the ABC affiliate, and we got her press passes so we could go in, and we go to 15, 20 games a summer. It was old. It was kind of decrepit's too strong, but they didn't really maintain the stadium like they should have. But you had that great overhang in the outfield where you were a part of the field. And the bleachers were far away, but that was a free for all up there. But the upper deck was hung over the field. So if you're in the upper deck, you could reach out and felt like you could touch the field.
Yeah.
I went in 1984. They to games 4 and 5 of the World Series. Then they closed the stadium. I want to say would have been 25th anniversary of the Tigers. So it would have been 94. Yeah, 94. And it got a tour. And the clubhouse was a piece of crap. Again, I got great memories of it. Comerica Park is a much better place to watch baseball.
Yeah.
I remember I went to
Tiger Stadium, was it in what's called Corktown?
Corktown. Right.
Okay.
Michigan and
that's
Trumbull.
where we stayed when we went up, and it's kind of, I think they're bringing it back. It reminded me a little bit of OTR, sort of. It had the same kind of feel to it. Yeah.
Hey, Jack, enough of this Detroit talk. I want to know, George is now one of the owners of the Reds. I want to know, George, when did you come to Cincinnati, and when did you become a Reds fan?
I was a summer clerk at Dinsmore in 1981. So I went to Michigan Law School. And I'm kind of quiet about that, but maybe I'm not quiet about it. But I knew I wanted to stay in the Midwest when I finished law school. So I looked for summer jobs in Milwaukee, Chicago, Detroit, and Cincinnati. I had family in the first three, obviously. But one of my college roommates was from Cincinnati, and he loved Cincinnati. So of all the people I interviewed with, I like the people I met at Dinsmore and Shoal, the one day I spent here. So I came down for the summer. I had a great time. Liked the people. Thought I had some opportunity, so I came back and met her ever since. But in 1980, you recall, that was the split season when the Reds had the best overall record and got completely hosed. Mediocre commissioner. Terrible decision. I thought you win the first half and you win the second half. And we have with the best record get completely screwed. And that was a high watermark. The Reds then fell off the table. I felt kind of guilty that I was responsible that I moved here. They went in the crapper. The Tigers were getting better every year in the early 80s.
Randy's
the Tigers had a pretty good manager, I think.
Season. Okay?
You wrote a book on the split season, Randy? That's right.
I did. It's coming out.
Team.
It's a great team. Bowie Kuhn, the commissioner, you're right, one of the worst commissioners
Don't even
of all
say his
time.
name out loud. Don't say his name. The man whose name we shall not speak.
That was so outrageously stupid. I mean, I just, there is another book called The Split Season, and it just talks about just, what an idiot. And in fact, my recollection is, and Randy, maybe you're writing a book, so maybe you can help me on this, but my recollection is the Reds were a half game out at the break. And I'm pretty sure about this. The reason they were a half game out is in a game they were winning, it rained, and they called the game, and
so they played one less game in the first half, and they came a half game out, and then the second half they were like a game out.
It was outrageous.
Yeah,
and they had the best record in baseball.
Nothing to show for it, and then the team got bad.
Yeah,
got really bad.
Unfortunately, you hit that high water mark, and then 82, 83, 84 was not so strong as the Tigers were ascending under Sparky Anderson's leadership, right? So
yeah, he was beloved in Detroit still, and I'll never understand why he was fired here. Phenomenal success, great leader, a motivator of men. Huge mistake.
Well, like Bowie Kuhn, never mention the name Dick Wagner.
I will never.
I think he was responsible for Sparky leaving, Tony leaving, Pete leaving.
He was one of the most aptly named men in history.
Wagner?
Apparently, if he had had his way, I'm not sure Marty Brenneman would have stuck around. I mean, he and Marty butted heads a lot, and he brought in a third guy into the booth for a while at one point, and I don't know what his deal was. He did not seem to like success or something. So
So George, how did you become part of the ownership
Pete
group?
Came back. What are your recollections of that? What's kind of your memories of that event?
So I have Pete Rose's 1965 baseball card. My wife framed 6 cards. That was one of the cards she framed for me many years ago. So I was always a Pete fan. But back then, you never saw National League. So that was the game of the week. Or the All-Star game. And Pete was kind of iconic, our childhoods. So kind of having Pete come back was a big deal. Remember, March would fly the planes around. Pete, Joe, Tony come back and help. But that was a big moment, even for me. And at that point, I'd lived here long enough that my allegiances were starting to shift. You go to Reds games. I had Red season tickets when I shared them we moved here, and you kind of lose touch with Detroit. Still a Tigers fan at that point, but increasingly becoming a Reds fan. And Pete coming back with his motivation and motivating skills was a great thing for the Reds. And having watched it's HBO that's got that special on
Yeah.
him, you realize that was a great thing for the team. He took those guys and really molded them into a clubhouse and a team that cared, and they all worked together. And then Lou Piniella obviously reaped the benefits of that in 1990.
Yeah. No
So,
doubt.
George, how did you become part of the ownership group?
So Bob Castellini is my longtime client, and we did the transaction for Bob. And as part of that, if you may recall, he and part of the Texas Rangers sold that and became a part owner of the Orioles, and then became part owner of the Cardinals. And I had an opportunity to buy his interest in the Rangers. It was right of first refusal. They topped me. But he said, George, if I buy the Reds, I'll let you have a chance to participate. So we do the deal. He brought a number of people from the community into ownership with him, and I was lucky enough to put a group together and have a chance to participate as well. I tell people, if you can't play baseball, being a part owner is beyond belief. Because you're a kid, the owner's a mythical guy, right? John Fetzer owned the Tigers. He was this guy at Mount Olympus. John Fetzer, the owner. And I own a small part of the team, but have that chance is extraordinarily fun.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's it's a way to be a part of it. Yeah, in a small way, and it can be pretty cool. There's some fun perks. I went to law school with Paul Dolan, who owns the Indians, and he's this one game. We both happened to be in Kansas City, and the Guardians were the Indians. Then were playing the Royals, and he said, "Hey, take an Uber to the park. Come to the game." And so I was like, okay. I mean, I had a rental car, but he says take an Uber. I take an Uber. That's fine. And the reason he told me to take an Uber is I got to ride on the team bus back to the hotel after the game, which was
it's pretty cool.
It was pretty cool.
So Guardians have a hell of a season too.
George,
yeah,
you think
that family's done a nice job with that team. They get a lot of grief up in Cleveland for not spending money, but it's like they're just consistently, ahead of that division, and I hope they have a nice run this year.
They spent it wisely.
Who's your favorite manager of all time?
Lou Piniella.
Oh, really? Okay.
I got to know Lou when he was an advisor to the Reds. He's the real deal. Again, motivator of men, understands the human psyche. Smart guy, well-read, very thoughtful. A pretty damn good player when he played.
Yeah.
But didn't take any crap and held people accountable. I think again he took the team that Pete had kind of built and made them better. And 1990 was a heck of a year. Wire to wire. Sweep of whatever thought was a superior team. He would be my favorite manager.
He was, that 90 team was just so amazing. That was as much as I loved the Big Red Machine and the back to back in 75 and 76, man, that 90 team was fun to watch, and just the story was great. And then Chris Sabo said one time that when they were getting ready for the World Series, they really thought that the Pirates were better than the A's, and that the fact that
was a better series. It was a great series of all time. I mean, those games were close, tense. They had that great outfield. Bonilla Bonds and Van Slyke had good pitching. That was a really good series.
Yeah.
So George, do you think
I
we can
still
compete
remember
again?
Going to game, or let's see, I went to game 2 because Leland, Jim Leland, who later coached the Tigers or managed the Tigers, he didn't start Drabek in game 1. He started Bob Walk, and the Pirates won. And now the Reds got to come back in game 2 and deal with Doug Drabek, and they managed to win that game. And then they won 3 straight, I think, and then the Pirates won 1. But I remember leaving for the I went. It was an afternoon game. Game two was an afternoon game, and a friend of mine hit tickets, and his I was leaving. Rob Kreidler, who you
Oh,
know, I'm
sure.
sure,
That's
right,
your Robbie. Yeah.
from Graydon, said something like, "Oh, you're going to that funeral today," or something like that. I mean,
Yeah, Robbie's always upbeat. That would
yeah,
be.
it was just,
I went to every game in Cincinnati that year in the playoffs uh, against the Pirates and against Oakland. Uh, that was a really good team.
did you go to Pittsburgh to the games in Pittsburgh too?
No,
Or?
just once year.
Oh, just one Cincinnati. Yeah, yeah.
I did go to Pittsburgh, Jack.
What's that?
George, do you think that as an owner of the Reds, part owner of the Reds, do you think a small market team like the Reds will ever experience success again
Yes.
on any kind of sustained basis?
Sustained is a tougher one, but I'm going to say yes to that. Um, you look what Kansas City did a few years ago. That was sustained for a while. You look what Tampa Bay's done. The Orioles, Cleveland, uh, Tigers to a lesser extent. Yeah, it is sustainable. Now you got to continue to regenerate. You got to be willing to trade guys before anybody in the public wants them to be traded. That's Tampa Bay's secret sauce. That's tough on a fan base, but yeah, I believe it's still. But now, clearly, if you can get uh, a salary cap that kind of smooths things out, it's a whole lot easier. Um,
Do you think
I'm not
that'll
going to
ever
be.
be adopted? I mean, in any form.
I got to be careful what I say. I hope so. You look at hockey. Yeah, hockey. I'm a Red Wings fan, and we had the Illich's who owned the Tigers, also owned the Red Wings. They spent enormous amounts of money, and they had the best team in hockey because they stockpiled people. And in the end, they agreed it's not good for hockey for us to be able to spend more than anybody else and have a better team than anybody else every single year. So they, in the end, agreed to a salary cap. I'd like to think that the union sees at some point it makes sense to have a competitive balance, and that every team's got city's got a chance to succeed. Because it's tough when the Dodgers can spend more than anybody else, except for the Yankees, maybe the Red Sox. It's tough to compete. It's tough to be sustainable. I think we've done a pretty good job developing young talent, but we in the back of our minds we're also we have them for 6 years. That's it.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
tough.
Who was your
Be
favorite
nice, I
Reds
mean, I
player
think
in the last 20 years?
Favorite Reds player last 20 years. Boy, oh boy. Huh. I'm going to give you a typical lawyer answer. Adam Duvall, I thought was a heck of a nice guy and a really good teammate. He's done really well with the Braves after we traded him, but he was a really likable guy who I thought gave his all. That's one. And Joey Votto was unique and clearly the best player in the last 20, 25 years here, in my opinion. Barry Larkin at the very end would, I guess, maybe fit in there. He's a Michigan guy. You go back to that 1990s team, you had Hal Morris, Sabo, and Larkin, all Michigan guys as helping infield. That would
there
be
you go.
my favorite Reds team since I lived here.
Oh man. So, what do you think about the rule changes that have been adopted over the last few years?
So I think the pitch clock has been a wonderful thing. No one wants to sit. I should say, very few of us want to sit and watch a game that's 4 hours long. I go back to 1976. Mark Fidrich, his games were 2 hours, 2 hour 1 minute, 2 hours 2 minutes, hour and 59. You get the ball, throw the ball, and the game goes like that, and it keeps people's interest. The pitch clock has brought a lot of that back. The games are still going 2.5 hours, but it's not 3.5, 4 hours anymore. So I think that's a great change. The bigger bases, not much of a difference, but I think it has helped people steal more bases, which keeps people's interest. I'm not a fan of the ghost runner. Um, you feel like you're playing wiffle ball with your neighborhood friends. You don't have enough guys in the outfield, so you got a ghost runner. I got no problem playing 20 innings if that's what it's going to take. Um, but by and large, I think the things have made the game faster and more conducive to fan interest have been good.
We had Chris Welsh on. We had Chris Welsh on a couple weeks ago, and
He's a great guy, by the way.
he maintains a record that will never be broken, which is the number of times throwing over to first base. He threw over 21 times against somebody. And he told us on the show, hey, it's going to stand
very
forever.
proud of he's very proud of that. He talks about that a lot.
The guy stole the guy on
Yeah,
first
Yeah.
stole the
it's
on
because
the
his move.
22nd when he went to home plate, and the guy stole.
Tell Chris because his move was so crummy, he had to throw 21 times. Tell him I said that.
Hey, George, I know you're a big music guy. So if you're a big league ball player, what would be your walk-up song?
I'd love to change the world by 10 years after. It's my favorite band. Obscure. My wife said nobody cares about that band, George. That's my favorite band. Alvin Lee, the lead guitar. That was their only top 40 hit. I'd go with I'd love to change the world 10 years after.
I don't know if that strikes fear in the heart of the opposing pitcher or not. I think
If you don't have enough confidence, that it takes your walk-up song to get you going. You shouldn't be playing in the major leagues. That's why I like when Joey Votto had Jolene as his walk-up song for several months.
Right.
I thought that was his best choice ever.
Jolene.
I like Tyler Stevenson doing Afternoon Delight from Anchorman this year. That was awesome. The a cappella version of Afternoon Delight.
Starland Vocal Band, one of the worst songs in history.
How about your favorite baseball movie?
Boy, that's a tough one.
That is a tough one, isn't it?
There have been so many bad ones. There's just a handful of really good ones. I finally got with Field of Dreams. Usually like the movies when you're a kid, but I thought that was a really effective movie. James Earl Jones, also a Michigan graduate. I thought was really good in that. And Kevin Costner plays every man as well as anybody. He and Tom Hanks, best of that in history, I think.
So James Earl Jones was actually in my not my favorite, but probably my third favorite baseball movie, which was Sandlot. So I thought more about Sandlot when he died than I did Field of Dreams, because that was Sandlot came out at the perfect time with my kids. That was just like that's just they're probably all time favorite, I think. So.
But then you think how the Babe Ruth story, how some of those movies were just terrible.
Oh yeah, there were some bad. Yeah. Well. Yeah, the like the black and white version of the Babe Ruth story.
Yeah.
That was bad. The John Goodman thing was pretty bad too, actually. So
John Goodman. Yeah, enough said. Pride of the Yankees wasn't too bad.
Okay, George, now it's time for a little bit of word association. And I'll start off with Ellie De La Cruz.
Speed.
Alan Trammell.
Class.
You're most of our guests kind of expand, but this is
They
analytics.
can't resist expanding. How about Skyline or Gold Star?
Neither. It's not chili. It's a topping. I like chili. Don't tell anybody.
All right, how about this one? Buddies or Taglio?
Oh, Buddies. Go. Always the original.
Taglio?
Taglio's is good. You got to go with Buddies though.
How about Spuds? Chris Sabo.
Rosedale Park. That's where he grew up.
Very good, George. I tell you,
I don't think you heard mine. I had analytics. Did we get an answer to analytics?
Yeah, good idea. Analytics has made baseball better.
How so do you think?
If you like baseball, you like statistics. You like to dig in deep, and I think you go back to Eddie Stanky in 1950. Hit like a 480 on base percentage, and people kind of poo-pooed it because he only hit like 250. He walked all the time, and Joey Votto kind of got knocked for walking all the time. But you can't score if you're not on base, and I think the ability to kind of analyze what people do and how they do it, and what really drives success in baseball, as opposed to what your gut says, has made baseball better. Now, getting rid of the shift, I think that was a good. We talked about rule changes earlier. I think that was a good rule change because when you got 4 guys on one side of the infield, and the guy cannot go the other way, that kind of takes away from the game. But analytics created that. So the guy, 100% of the time, he's going to pull the ball. Well, let's move guys over there.
Yeah.
It makes baseball better. It makes teams better. And if you've got good analytics, folks, you're going to be better than the guy who doesn't have good analytics, folks.
I'm reading a book about the 1946 baseball season because it was the first season after everybody came back from World War II. And
Hal Newhouser, second MVP. Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Hal Newhouser.
Newhouser, yeah, right. That's a name that I had not known, but I've used it in the Immaculate Grid now several times. So it's been a real godsend. But Lou Boudreau, who was the manager of the Indians,
Who's
started a radical.
Dan McLean's father-in-law, by the way, Lou Boudreau.
Yes, I knew. I actually, yeah, but he started this radical shift against Ted Williams. They put everybody over in
Yep.
right field. They had one guy playing short left field, and I had kind of known about that, and I heard a story that Williams turned back to the umpire and said, "Is that legal?" And the umpire said, "Yeah, Ted, that's legal." And Williams said, "Well, they can't put him high enough, and he hit a home run over everybody. But he was having trouble. It frustrated him, and other teams started doing it. And it was interesting. The thing I did not know, but learned from the book, is that some of the old timers like Ty Cobb and Al Simmons were really critical of Williams because he wouldn't go to left field.
Right.
And his whole point was, it's going to mess up my whole swing. Is Williams was Joey Votto on steroids, but he just was like not going to mess around with his swing and start trying to poke balls into left field. But it was interesting that, as great a hitter as he was, that the old timers were really giving it to him for not hitting against the shifts. But I kind of agree with you. I was at first, I thought, I think you ought to be able to play your defense how you play your defense. But I think on balance, it really discriminated against left-handed hitters because,
Yep.
You could put that second baseman playing short right field and taking away hits in a way that you couldn't, the right-handers didn't have to deal with it too much. So I'm on balance. I think it's good. I think it was a good chance.
Hey, George, what about Marty Brenneman?
Lovely guy. I'm a huge Marty fan. You get to know him. He's a really, really good person on top of that. He's got great, varied, I'm not expanding. You let me expand, so I'm going to expand. He's got varied interests. He's passionate about lots of stuff, and he knows lots of stuff. He's a really interesting guy.
How about Kim Vincent?
Gorgeous.
Hey,
That's
I
the
know
right
you're
answer.
involved in a lot of community activities, and your wife is Kim is active in the Reds Community Fund. Do you ever say no to anybody, George, that asks you to be on some board or philanthropic organization?
Yeah, the answer is yes to that. I've had the chance to do a lot of really fun things in Cincinnati. Been blessed to have those opportunities, but I don't say yes to everything. Some things just doesn't click, doesn't resonate. And if you're not passionate about what you're going to do, or you don't think you're going to learn something, you shouldn't join the board. I don't want to just check the box. I want to make things better. I want to learn something. I want to grow somehow, some way through that board service.
So you step back from managing the firm. Is it allowed you a little more time? Are you able to do some things that you weren't able to do before, or is your practice keeping you about as busy as it did?
Yeah, so I'm practice. I got back into the practice. I'm doing more legal work, but I'm taking more time just working remotely. I was in Michigan for 3.5 weeks. The summer was kind of nice, and we were in Florida for 5 weeks during the winter. That was kind of nice too. Different times for different things, as you know. You slowed down, Randy. I know you've slowed down a bit, Jack. When you switch firms, it's kind of nice to be able to look back on a career and do things that you've always wanted to, but never had the time to do. So I'm trying to put a little more. I'm gonna play golf tomorrow, so that's a big thing for me.
Perfect.
That's awesome. Yeah. Well, you have had a great career, and as Randy says, just looking at the list of community activities, it's impressive. And thank you for all you've done for the community, and we appreciate it. Thank you for being on our show today.
Hey,
My
George,
pleasure.
are we going to see a Reds World Championship in our lifetime?
How long do you plan to live?
At least 6 more months.
The answer is yes. I mean, that's what's great about baseball. There's always next season. And you look at the core of what we've got right now. Matt McLean getting hurt, I would argue that was the biggest blow we had all season. Matt had a great year. He's a great fielder. He's a damn good hitter. And the injuries just ripped through the pitching staff. And they still, this is the best pitching we've had maybe my time here in terms of depth. So, yeah, I'm an optimist. I'm optimistic. We got good young talent. Ella De La Cruz, 22 years old. Look at the season he had at 22. He's the real deal, and he's a hell of a nice guy too.
Hey, George, you've got Bob Castellini's ears, so I have a suggestion to make. We all love the 7th inning stretch. Take me out to the ball game, the Cincinnati song. I really think after every Reds victory, like they do in New York with New York, New York, I think we ought to play a little I Feel Good. I think it'd be tremendous just after wins.
I'll give it a shot. Let's
Yeah,
see.
Okay,
little
give
James
it a
Brown.
shot.
He's got a little. Well, of course, I want after every home run, George. I want the opening chords to "Smoke on the Water" to just
Dun, dun,
flare out.
dun,
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 dun.
dun,
Oh, that'd be so cool.
dun. One of the
So
great
see what you
opening
can do
lines of all
about that,
time.
George.
But James Brown's good because James Brown recorded all those albums
Right.
here at King Studios, so that's a natural fit. I'm seeing Bob tomorrow. I'll mention it to him.
You mentioned it to him. Are you giving him strokes or is he giving you strokes?
He used to give me strokes, but I think at this point I may have to give him a couple.
Fair enough. Fair enough. All right. Well, we appreciate it, man. Thank you for your time today, George. This was great.
I got to make one final moment. So, like all high school students, I got to pick which team.
There we go.
All right.
Here we
Hey.
Go
Picking
Reds,
the
baby.
Reds cap. We put the
We
Reds
love
cap
that.
on. I love it.
We love it.
Thanks.
Oh, wow. Another standing ovation, George. It sounds like you're crying. Calm down. Calm down. Calm down.
I feel like I'm just walking in the house.
The whole town's batting about Cincinnati. What a team, what a team, what a team. Each man and lady from 1 to 80, how they scream, how they scream, how they scream.